I am now going to read the conflict. We're largely done with the open session. I'm going to read the conflict of interest statement, and this is done in the public open session. But just to remind you, this COI form refers to the applications that you're going to review in the closed session. You must leave the meeting room when applications submitted by your own organization are being individually discussed. In the case of the state, higher education, or other systems with multiple campuses that are geographically separated, own organization is intended to mean the entire system, except where a determination has been made that the components are separate organizations for the purpose of determining conflict of interest. You should avoid situations that could give rise to charges of conflict of interest, whether real or apparent. For example, you should not participate in the deliberations and actions of any application from or involving your spouse, child, recent student, recent mentor, professional collaborator with whom you've been working closely, a close personal friend, or a scientist with whom you've had long-standing scientific or personal differences. The NHGRI staff will determine the appropriate action based on recency, frequency, and strengths of such associations or interest, either positive or negative, and will instruct you accordingly. In council actions in which you vote on a block of applications without discussing any individual one, the en bloc action being one example, your vote will not apply to any application from any institution fulfilling the criteria noted above. Please sign the conflict of interest and disposal of confidential materials form, which are provided in your folders, and leave them here at your place on the table. We will collect them after the meeting adjourns. So we are now through the open session, but we have one last order of business before we close and move to closed session. It's September, and council terms end on September 30th. So at this time, we are going to release 4 of you back into the wild and put you at risk of serving on peer review committees and program advisory committees, all the things you've had immunity from for 4 years. So I hope you've enjoyed the council experience, but I hope you appreciate the immunity that you've had from other NIH service. So we have some lovely parting gifts along with some choice words. Eric, are you going to hand out the gifts? We're going to start.
And this is what Gail means by when you're gone.
When you're gone. We're going to watch Gail float away here. So Gail, you're going to start us off. We have relied on you to provide guidance on all things related to the ELSI research program, and you have served us well in that regard. But you've also found opportunities, some of which you spoke about earlier today, to immerse or integrate ELSI research in other programs, genomic medicine being the most obvious example. So we're grateful for that. We're looking out for those opportunities. You've also been a good advocate for the training program here. So we thank you for your service. Yeah, you just went over the weight limit on the Brent Gravely. Brent's one of those people you can assign anything to. Gene expression studies, gene networks, large-scale production activities, training. He's your go-to guy for everything. And that's really valuable on the council. He's also got a wonderful, quiet sense of humor and a cooperative way about him that's really essential for any kind of deliberative decision-making body. You've got to have some real kind personalities to make that work. I remember a discussion about 2 years ago that just took off, and for about 20 minutes there were all kinds of opinions just flying around the table. And Brent waited very patiently and then raised his hand and said, "I agree with everything that everyone has said before me." And that engendered a little laugh, but it was also a perfect summation of everything that had been said at that discussion. So we will miss you, Brent, and we thank you for your service. Mark Johnston. Over the 4 years that Mark has served on council, I have come to regard him as perhaps the most important member of the council, and I will explain that.
Yes.
Mark uses genomic resources, works in a model organism that is frequently used for genomic studies. He has a great appreciation of the importance and utility of genomic science, but he doesn't get involved in a lot of consortium activities. So when we have those really tough decisions and half the council is out in the hallway sipping coffee, Mark is always in the room and has always served us well and guided us in all of those really difficult, tangled kind of decisions. So Mark, thank you for allowing us to stretch your expertise. And Jonathan Pritchard. Jonathan, it may surprise you to learn that you are the council member that we have talked about the most over the last year. And that's because we are really struggling to figure out how to replace you with just one person. Your knowledge of computational biology and informatics is superb. You also have a tremendous insight about population structures and how genetic variation contributes to phenotype. And that really makes you important to all components of NHGRI. You're also a gentle spirit and the consummate gentleman. So it's been a privilege to have you on council. Thank you very much. So one last comment about this graduating class. If there were a group award that I could give for good citizenship on council, it would be to this bunch. Normally at this little send-off, I find something satirical or teasing to say about each of the council members, and I'm pretty good at that. And I struggled with this bunch. You guys have always showed up. You have respected the process. You've been low maintenance, and you've maintained your objectivity. And you're an exemplary class, and you've been a pleasure to work with. So thank you again. And I think you can gavel us into closed session.
Okay. So we will draw the open session to an end.
Right. So we need about 10 or 15 minutes to break down the cameras. So go back to conversation and coffee, and then we'll get started.
How long are we going to go?
I think we can finish in half an hour or so. So maybe.